Welcome to the Tenn podcast. I'm Kat.
And I'm Catlin.
And we're here every week talking watches, photography, adventure, and exploring the world of horology.
Today we are joined by Parker Lieberman from Dial Bezel. Hi, Parker. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. It's really exciting.
Yeah, we're super excited. And for those that don't know, Parker is launching a new site, which is basically a community watch auction, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You know,
good job, Kat.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think we're done here.
We're done. The end. Cut it. We're out.
Yeah, you know, Dial Bezel is a community-focused watch auction website for buying and selling watches. That's like a bunch of like marketing speak, but what it really means is we're going to have daily auctions with curated watches. We hope to find really cool and interesting things, and we're going to do it in a way that's as transparent and open with great tools to have people talk and learn and engage with watches, hopefully in a way that they can't do today.
That's awesome. Well, we're super excited about it. I mean, we are both, well, I shouldn't say both. I have done a lot of buying and selling online. Catlin has not. I'm the flipper in the group.
Buying online. I haven't quite made it to the selling phase, which I need to. My watch box runneth over, but yeah, it's very exciting.
Well, I mean, it's a scary, daunting thing, especially if you're not, if you haven't been doing it for a while. I know I was certainly scared the first time I went to buy something that was over $1,000. Like, that's $1,000 you're sending to someone you don't know, and you're hoping that little package you get in the mail has a watch inside.
Yeah,
and
it's incredibly scary.
Yeah.
It's totally scary. It's like, there are some great online retailers, but like a lot of this selling happens in like Facebook forums and Reddit and, on Instagram. And it's like, okay, you just Venmo someone or PayPal someone. Like you say, you just wait and hope and pray that this box shows up and that it's what you think it was.
Yeah. And because of that reason, like for a long time, I only did buying and selling through, Watch You Seek, some of the forums, because I could see that there was reviews from guys that had been on there for years and years. So I trusted them versus other online marketplaces where I just wasn't quite sure. You could see their past history. It's like, okay, they've sold a lamp and they've sold some shoes. Now they're selling a $5,000 watch. I'm not sure about this. So tell us a little bit about like how the idea got started. I know you've been working on this for a little while now.
Yeah. So, I've just been a watch sort of nerd for a bunch of years and really into the hobby. And I think in general, I love sort of any hobby that I can just like learn so much about. And, even when you start to think you know a bit about watches, you realize, oh my God, I know nothing.
Every day. That's how I feel.
And like, that's what I love about it. There's always more to learn. There's always more to talk about. And that's what makes it so cool. And I'm also sort of along those lines, a big car fan. And I saw this really, really awesome website called Bring a Trailer that was doing auctions for cars. And the sort of community engagement and conversations that were happening on the website were like really inspiring to me. And looking at the world of watches, I really thought that there was room for something like that in watches. And so a few of the things that we're going to do to sort of foster, we use this word community, but like what that actually means and how we sort of enable that is through three things. The first is through curation. So, like you guys know, there's so many watches for sale online.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You go on and you search for anything and there's thousands of results. And it's like, okay, well, which one do I look for? How do I sort through this? So we're going to do the first layer of curation and hopefully put cool and interesting things in front of people who are on our website. The second thing we're going to do is have really high standards on descriptions. So we're actually going to write the descriptions and make them really impartial.
Okay.
That way you don't get any sort of that sales babble of, never
Best
polished,
watch
perfect
ever.
condition, like best watch ever. It's like every single watch for sale on the internet seems to be the best watch ever. And like sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. And sometimes when I'm buying a watch, I don't want the best watch ever. I want a watch that maybe has a few dings and scratches because I'm going to wear it everywhere and I'm going to take it anywhere and I'm going to go swimming with it. And like, it's a daily wear and that's cool. And to go along with the descriptions, we're really focusing on photography. So we, our friend Matt Hancock, who's the author of Amanda's Watch, and W.M. Brown, is helping us out with some great photo guides on how to take great watch photos. So hopefully you'll get a really, really good understanding of what it is that you're looking at, both the highlights and the flaws in description and photography. And then the last piece is really focused around comments. So all the sellers are going to be required to answer questions publicly in the comment section. So hopefully it will enable like a great conversation where you can learn about the watch, learn about what sort of questions to ask when buying a watch. And I think that that's really important because there's a lot of things that it's like, how do you know if you're just getting into this, like what reloomed hands look like?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no book on that. Like, and so, that's really where the idea came about. It was about, creating this space online where people can like learn and connect and transact around watches.
Very interesting. Now, so the photography aspect of it, in working with Matt, is this going to be sort of a kind of a class that people are going to look at to take advice from and how to take their own photos, or is this something that someone else is going to be taking the photos of the watches?
So we're going to offer a service where we'll take the photos for you.
Okay.
I myself am not a great photographer, so that's something I might do. But we also want to give our sellers the tools to take their own photos.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to provide really in-depth guides and videos on how to take great photos. What I've learned, again, I'm not much of a photographer, but what I've learned, it's a lot, there's some basic things you can do about, shooting in direct sunlight, being really mindful of your shadows, making sure you get every single angle of your watch, being mindful of reflections, some really basic stuff that I think we can highlight in some sort of easy to read and understand ways that hopefully will let people become better watch photographers.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that, you kind of nailed it. Some people just don't want to do the work. They're just like, I just want to sell my watch. I don't want to take pictures of it. Like, and we've seen that, we've seen those profiles on some of those, websites and in marketplaces where, it's the crappiest shot of the watch. And it's just, they don't care about photography. They're just interested in selling it. But no, that's great that you guys are going to offer that service for people that don't want to have to do that little bit of extra work into setting up a good shot. But
well, and I think that people really underestimate how important good photos are to sell anything. And you see this across every platform, right? You see it, whether you're buying cars, furniture, watches, jewelry, anything, you see those posts that just have the shot that looks like it was taken on a flip phone way back in the day. It's blurry as hell. You can't see any detail. And then, you wonder why the buyer comes back and says, oh, I didn't know that there were all these scratches here or anything else, versus taking good photography. And I think as a buyer, seeing good photos, first, it's obviously more attractive. I feel like I get a better idea of what I'm buying too. And I think when we discussed this, a little while ago, when we first spoke, You mentioned Bring a Trailer, and so we went on Bring a Trailer's website and we started looking around, and there are photos of every single angle of these vehicles, and different photos that you wouldn't even think of taking yet, and things like that. And I think ideally, I'm sure it's going to be the same with watches, taking photos of the backs of lugs, so I can see how many times somebody has tried to change the strap and how scratched it is, and taking photos of the sides of cases. There's so many details that I don't think you think about when you're posting a watch for sale, but when I get a watch in that I'm buying, I'm looking over it with a fine-tooth comb, and I don't want to feel like I got bamboozled thinking the watch was in better quality than what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, we all want to like hide the photos of the bottom of our lugs because look, we all make some mistakes. But like you said, it's really important, and I think like what you touched on earlier about like transparency and trust, Like, that's what it's all about. It's like, let people know what they're getting. Great stuff will always get great prices, even if it has some scratches on the underside of the lugs, from changing a strap. It's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah. And I think, this being it's probably going to have a lot of watch enthusiasts coming towards as far as traffic goes on this website. And we're going to know, like, it's inevitable. You're going to have some, you're going to have some scratches here and there, especially on the back of the lugs. Like, it's just going to happen. And I think people will be a little bit more understanding. I do always find it funny when sellers try to hide that. And it's like, it's okay. Just like, let me know it's there.
Yeah, I just want to know ahead of time. When you say you've worn this watch twice, don't have the most scratched up lugs in history. Like, I know that clearly you've lied about that. And I can respect that. I can respect the transparency. And I think that's something that's really interesting about your website. We've both looked at, I haven't bought a lot of watches online from sellers. I think I've bought one watch off of Instagram, but it was somebody that like I had a pretty decent relationship with, and that's it. But I know Kat has a lot of experience with this, and it's overwhelming to an extent. It's a little bit more difficult to get some transparency from people, but it seems like the layout of your website is going to be, one where transparency is required. I didn't know that you were writing the descriptions. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Can you go into a little bit of detail, Parker, on just what those descriptions are going to entail?
Yeah, 100%. So each description will have 2 parts of the description. So the first part is called the reference, and that's just going to be some background information on the model. So, what's the history of the IWC engine oil? Who was it designed by? It was meant to be anti-magnetic. It was in the style, in the 70s, coming off of the Royal Oak and the Nautilus, and things to just give you some context of like, where did this watch come from? What is it within the world of watches? So we want that to sort of be educational and sort of fun to read, and hopefully you can learn something new about a watch. Then the second piece is going to be called the watch, and that's really detailed information about the watch itself that's for sale. And so there we will provide as much information as possible and that we have proof of about that piece. So, we want to know, where did you buy the watch? How long have you owned it? Do you have any cool stories with the watch? Did you take it on trips? Has it been around the world with you? What are the highlights of the watch? What are also the defects? What are those major scratches? What are those major dings? Does it have all of its original pieces? Was it service? Just as much information as possible that we can prove.
No, it makes sense. And I love that you're focusing it mostly on telling a story about the watch. It's not just here's the facts, here's the price, the end. It really is a story, which like I feel like I'm a romantic when it comes to watches. That's why I don't sell anything. I'm way too attached. But I buy into the story that people have with their watches, and I like the idea of sharing that story. It's super cool. Yeah,
and we're all such like, I assume you guys are like me, where it's like, by the time I'm looking at a watch, like, I know what diameter it is.
Yeah.
I don't need to see that again. I get that it's 38 millimeters. Like, I'm good. Like, what else is there? What else can I learn about this thing? And so, just providing as much of that story and context is what we're going to try to do.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Like, seeing a watch and you're like, oh, this guy, he bought it while he was on a trip in Italy with his family and 10 years ago, and then he hasn't worn it since. Like, that's just cool. Like, I've had watches that have engravings on the back of them, and I always want to know more, and then you don't always get that. So I think it's cool that you guys are trying to get as much information as possible.
Yeah.
So let's tell us a little bit about, like, who is the watch site for? Is what kind of watches are you guys going to be looking at curating?
So we hope to have like a bit of everything.
Okay.
When we're curating, we're not curating at all by value. Price doesn't matter to us. What matters to us is interesting, and whether the community is going to find it interesting. So we actually got a really cool watch submission the other day that I thought was like the perfect embodiment of like cool and interesting. We got an Omega soccer timer, and I had never heard about this watch. The design is really, really cool. It's got a really interesting function. It's meant to time a soccer match.
Yeah.
And the story behind it's cool. And it's like, that's sort of the perfect watch. it's not a $1 million Patek. It's not a Rolex sport watch that's like so in demand right now, but there's something so interesting and cool that I think other watch lovers, that will resonate with other watch lovers. And that's what we're really looking for.
That's awesome. That is a really cool watch.
Yeah, it's super cool, actually. Well, and I like the idea of having something different. You see the same watches everywhere, so it's nice to have one place that you, like, if I know that I want something a little bit more out of the box, or, you know, not something that I can see on anybody else's wrist, I like that I know that I can go to one place and I can find a wide assortment from different brands and different price points, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So Parker, is there going to be any fees for people that want to list on the website?
Yeah. So there's $100 flat seller's fee. Okay. If you wanted to take your own photos, that's cool. If you want us to take the photos, there'll be some additional fees. And then there's a 5% buyer's premium, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. You know, you guys are doing a lot of work, and you know, people can buy knowing that it's a safe purchase as well.
For sure. How do you start your bidding? Like, is it a price set by the buyer then, or by the seller?
Yeah, we'll work with the seller. You know, that's one of the things
realistic.
that yeah, we've talked about a lot. It's like, where do you start prices?
Right.
You know, our guess is that we'll probably work with the seller. We'll probably start prices anywhere between 25 and 50% of where we think the final auction price will end up. You know, each auction is going to last for 7 days. So there's enough time for people to bid, to interact, to ask questions. You know, they're not 24 hours. You know, we want people to take their time to make good decisions. And so we think starting the bid price around there will, you know, result in fair prices, you know, and that's one of the things we're really trying to go for. You know, we want both sides of the deal, both the buyer and the seller, to feel really good at the end of this experience.
I like that.
Most definitely. Well, and then, so as somebody who doesn't buy watches online, because I'm very apprehensive about, like, from a safety standpoint, as far as security, that I'm getting what I thought that I was getting, that, you know, like Kat's had an instance where somebody just kind of ran off with her money. What kind is the site
That's
going
crazy,
to offer?
by the way.
Yeah. So, is the site going to have any sort of security or any sort of measures to kind of help with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we're basically doing an escrow process. So the buyer will send the money to us. The seller will ship out the watch. Once the buyer receives the watch, they'll have, you know, some time to accept the watch. They can deny it for things like it's fake, or it's not the watch that was shown in the pictures, or things like that, sort of for cause. And then once they've accepted their watch, then the money goes to the seller. And if there's something wrong there, then we have the money, and we can either return it to the seller, or help sort of step in and remedy the situation as best as possible.
And does the buyer have like a 24-hour turnaround window once they get the watch?
We're thinking somewhere between 48 and 72 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, just in case a watch is delivered on Saturday, we want to make sure people have like at least one business day. If they do want to take it to, you know, their watchmaker and have something checked out, they have the time to do that.
Yeah, makes sense.
No, that's definitely very fair. But I do enjoy hearing that yeah. I don't know. It's always
scary.
And you've had your instance, and luckily you were able to get your money back. But there's a lot of people who, you know, kind of go through that and don't. So buying somewhere that's really, you know, accredited, it makes a big difference, I feel like.
Yeah, it goes back. It's all about like building trust, right? If we're all about the watch community, and we want to just make this a great experience, and so that really adds to it.
Well, so speaking of the watch community too, like I feel like you can really tell that you are an actual watch enthusiast who created this website. Like, the details that you've put into it are details that really only a watch guy would think about. Like, most people wouldn't think about like photographing like little details and things like that, or telling the story, because like you said, by the time I get around to your website, I've looked at the specs of this watch 8,000 times. I know exactly what I'm looking at. But I want to hear more about like the story and the actual watch. So what's your experience in the watch industry, just kind of in general, or in the hobby before you started the website?
Yeah. So, small world sort of story. For the last 6 years, I worked at WeWork. That's a whole nother podcast to talk about that, but the first location that I managed for them was in New York City in Soho, and one of the companies that was working out of the space was Hodinkee. And this was back in 2014. And it was Ben and one or two other guys, and I started learning about the site. I'd always been interested in watches. I always thought they were cool, but never like knew much about them. And started reading Hodinkee, and there was an value proposition article about a Tissot Vizzo date.
Love that
And it was
watch.
like the first time that I had sort of read an article about a watch that I could actually afford.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, like, this is really cool. I get this. This is something I really want. And I went out and bought that watch. And from then on, it's been, my wife would say, a sickness.
I feel like everybody's spouse is not as supportive as we would like them to be in our hobbies.
Well,
Man.
it's funny you say that, because like now, as like a way, I've like talked to my wife so much about watches, and I've now gotten her into watches, and I thought that
nice.
was going to be, better. I'm realizing it was probably a bad decision.
Because now if you want to watch, you have to like consider getting her something, which means you might have to wait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So every day on Instagram, I'm getting like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is so cool. And it's like, right. So the budget for my next watch is gone. Okay. Right.
Happy wife, happy life, right?
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was really sort of back in 2014, and I got that first watch, and shortly after that, my dad got a new watch, and he gave me the watch that I had sort of grown up seeing him wear, which is a really special piece to me. And it just sort of spiraled from there. And I, like I said earlier, like I'm just sort of the kind of person who loves digging into the minutia of things. And so any hobby where there are forums, there is a community where there's people I can talk to and ask questions, and just sort of this insatiable quest for knowledge was really exciting to me. And that's sort of it.
That's awesome.
Total watch nerd now.
Yeah. We can tell.
Well, so where did the idea for Dial Bezel, where did that start?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it was really, bring a trailer.
Yeah.
And the community interaction that I saw there.
Okay.
There's already auction websites for watches. There were already auction websites for cars.
Yeah.
And it was seeing the shift that you could do this in a way that was as much community based and educational and interaction based as it is transaction based. It's not all about buying and selling. It's about creating a place where people can come and learn and interact. And it was like sort of this light bulb went off. It was like, oh my God, that's something that I want myself in the watch world. And hopefully, and in talking to, people I respect in the watch world like you, it seemed to resonate with people. And that was sort of the sign to me of like, hey, watch people are sort of into this idea. Maybe I should go and do it.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's going to take off really well. Now tell me a little bit about like your relationship with Matt Hancock. He's pretty well known amongst the watch community. Obviously A Man in His Watch, and the William Brown project as well.
So, I live in the West Village in Manhattan, and Matt hangs out around here a lot, and we've just sort of become friends. And I reached out and asked him a favor to help out with this and to provide, some tips and tricks to help our users take photos. And luckily he was, willing to offer his support.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool. A lot of us follow him on Instagram and definitely has a really cool eye for this stuff.
Yeah.
And, that Instagram piece is a big part of it because, I assume that most people don't have a multi-$1,000 like digital SLR sitting around their house. Like some people might, but a lot of people like have their iPhones. And so we have to assume that most people who are going to be taking photos of their watch are going to be using their iPhone. And so how can we make these guides and these tips and tricks like iPhone focused? And so that's what we're doing.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's a very valid point is, most people don't have. You can take phenomenal photos with iPhones. Kat and I were just talking about this yesterday. We were going through some older photos that we used to both take with iPhones before we got cameras. But it's learning the tricks, and I think helping people out with that makes a huge difference for the product in general. That's awesome.
All right, so when are you guys looking to launch?
We're looking to launch early August. So we're going to do a couple fun things for the launch. One of the things we're going to do, just to make sure that the whole site is working well, I have 2 other partners that I'm working on, 2 of my best friends on the site, and we made a little bet with each other. So each of us got $150 to go out and buy a watch, and those first 3 watches are going to be the watches that we bought. And whatever watch gets the most engagement on it, we have a little side bet going. Wins a little prize. So that'll be the first thing, sort of for the watch community to try it out. It'll be dollar bids. Hopefully someone will end up, with a cool watch for, a few bucks. And that way, people can get sort of an introduction to the site, create accounts. We can just make sure that everything's working right. You do a lot of quality assurance, but you never quite know until there's real people on the site.
Yeah.
So my buddy Spencer, who's sort of running our retailer relations, he bought an all-white G-Shock, which is,
nice.
If you know Spencer, very Spencer. My buddy Brian, who's running marketing for us, he bought a Vostok,
nice.
A vintage Russian military watch. Which is pretty cool. And I bought a Stoker and Yale 184.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, I'm sort of new to this world of vintage military issued watches and trying to learn a bit about that. Some of the really old ones can be really expensive, but there's a bunch of stuff from the late 70s, mid 80s that they made millions of. They weren't that expensive, and you can find them, and they're really cool. So this watch is pretty interesting. It manual wind movement, nothing special from a movement perspective. The dial's got tritium on it, which is always cool.
Yeah.
So you get the radioactive symbol, just for an added little perk.
Makes people go, what is that?
Right? Just another point to bore your friends who aren't interested in watches with another fun fact about your watch. And the case is made out of this plastic polymer. I've read, I'm not sure, but I've read that it's the same composite material that they make Berettas with.
Oh, cool.
Which is kind of interesting. So we're going to battle it out and see who can get the most engagement on their watch with some of these fun sort of beta launches.
I like that you just announced which one everybody had those. So any listeners who have a favorite person can go vote or can go bid on that one.
Come on, I'm trying to rig this thing in my favor.
You were like, there's a casual G-Shock, there's this Vostok, but here is this really cool, awesome vintage watch.
Yeah, I'm not telling their stories. I'm telling my story.
No, that's awesome. I think that's such a fun way to check that everything's working. Man, that's so fun. And anytime you can one up your friends, it's always a good time.
Oh
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm super competitive.
Thankfully, Kat and I have not had any major competitions.
No.
I don't think it would end well. It'll be the end of Tenn 2. We take it way too seriously.
We do.
Oh man, way too extra. Well, so speaking of watches, we realized that we haven't done something that we always do and done a wristwatch check. So what are you wearing today?
I am wearing a Blancpain 7002.
Nice.
So if we have a second, it's sort of a cool story behind the watch. It's something that I had been searching for a long time. A buddy of mine who's also into watches has this thing about finding value in the watch world. And he always talks about think about how you can get 80 or 90% of the way there to some crazy watch that you like. And so, I've always really loved, the vintage steel Pateks with black dials and applied brigade numerals that are time only. And those watches are literally $1 million. And it was okay. So those are the things that I like the stainless steel, high-end movement, applied brigade numerals. And it's where can I find 90% of that watch for, a good value?
Yeah.
And so I read about this watch, about the Blancpain 7002, and I was like, this is awesome. This is like everything that I sort of want in this watch. It's a great size. It's 36, great movement. And I like couldn't find one anywhere. And I saw one come up for sale from a dealer in Boston, and I was like super excited. And I wrote him an email, and he was like, you just missed it. Someone put it on hold like 10 minutes ago.
Uh-huh.
And I was super, super bummed. And I had a big birthday a few months ago, and I opened the box for my wife for my birthday, and in it was that watch.
Aw.
Wow.
That's so sweet.
It was amazingly sweet. I had told Spencer, my co-founder, I was like, dude, I finally found it. I'm so excited. And he went and immediately called my wife.
That's a good
and
friend.
said, you need to call the dealer right now. He's going to buy this. And so unknowingly to me, the watch that I thought was sold, my wife had just bought for me.
Oh, man.
That's so sweet.
That's awesome.
That's goals. I need this
Caitlin,
person in my life.
I need you to go tell my husband when
I tried to Facebook message your husband about a book for Christmas, and he never even checked my message. Just
I don't think he knows how to. Oh no,
so
that's
talk to Jonathan about that.
That's an incredible story. I love stuff like that. That's just awesome.
That's so sweet.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you have the black dial version?
I have the black dial with the applied brigade numerals.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. That's
and what's the wrist check for you guys?
Today I'm actually wearing my Manta Ocean King. I've got the blue dial on. We're doing an episode later on summer watches, and this is like the perfect summer watch. The Rolex Explorer, like the Polar Explorer, might be a close second. But yeah, this one, I love the dial on this one. It's got a beautiful blue sunburst dial. And yeah, I love divers. I think we both love divers.
Yeah.
We're diver fans.
It's safe to say.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's such a cool watch. And I think the case design on that is like really perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it fits really well. And I have a hard time, because I do love divers, I have a hard time finding one that fits really well. And, we both sit at like 6.5 inch wrists, so we're not like super small by any means, but they're either too long, lug to lug's too wide, or, it's too thick. And yeah, this sits perfectly. What about you, Caitlin? What are you wearing today?
I have the Oris Aquas because
Another diver.
Yeah, because it's summer. Why not? So I have the
I feel out of place wearing a small dress watch.
You fancy.
We're also in like this terrible.
Could have given me like a hint, like, hey, we're a diver.
We're in like blue jeans, t-shirts, and ponytails. So
yeah, and like
the dress watch was not happening today.
These hot summer southern days, you gotta have a watch with a lot of water resistance. So.
Water resistance and a braid, like no leather straps. Leather straps won't be seen for a few more months.
No, I know.
I'm with you on that, but the thing is, like, I never wore a suit to work. Like, I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of person. Like, I will totally wear a dress watch with jeans and t-shirt.
I agree.
I don't care.
Yeah, 100. I love the hypocrisy of the look. I think it's just super cool. It's a good flex, I feel, to wear a dress watch.
Well, not even a flex.
Jeans.
I just feel like it looks good. Like when a guy is dressed up in either just like khakis or jeans and a white t-shirt, and then he's got a beautiful watch. Like I just like that look a lot. I dig it. Yeah. And then here I am with my like chunky diver on. that I'll wear with like, I'll wear this thing with the dress. Like I don't follow,
100%.
and I think we don't follow rules.
No.
We do what we want. I mean,
I like dress watches on NATO straps.
Yeah.
And I like wearing dive watches with suits and dresses.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I think I need to do the dress watch on the NATO strap.
Have you tried it?
I've never done that before.
It's so fun. It just kind of brings it down just a little bit. And for us, like for summer, it's practical. I just can't wear leather straps, especially on a dress watch. The leather straps tend to be very thin. So I just don't like that for summer. I prefer a NATO or leather.
Have you guys tried? I was looking at a few like the Perlon straps.
Yeah.
Have either of you guys tried one of those?
I haven't, but I'm very intrigued by them. I really like the textured look that they have and the pattern.
So my thing, I've had one in the past, and it wasn't the greatest quality, so it was kind of scratchy.
Oh, I would not like that.
And I also with a normal NATO, you'll get the fold over that you can kind of tuck in. With the Perlon, it's like if you get one that's too long, so you have to make sure to order it it's got to be the perfect size, because mine was too long, and then the fold over just looked really weird. It didn't have that same look. So I think if you can get one that's a bit better quality, softer, but they're nice because then you can, literally adjust it by micrometers and get the perfect size. But yeah, you gotta make sure it's the right size. Otherwise it looks kind of funky.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They've always intrigued me. I've never bought one. So I think that's my next watch related purchase, is giving one of those a try.
There you go.
That's such a practical watch related purchase too. Man. I'm just over
Remember,
here
my wife is in the other room, so I gotta just make sure that
she'll hear this episode.
She's like, I better get one too.
She's like, you just got this Blancpain, so it's her turn now.
it is, and she's got a big birthday coming up, so
Ooh.
Is
there
strategizing
anything
her.
on her list as far as watches?
She's been getting into some of the funkier vintage Cartiers.
Okay. Yeah.
Some of the much more retro's not the word I'm looking for. The word's gone. But yeah, some of the more funky, interesting, lesser known designs from the 70s that I think are a little bit underloved. She's been really getting into that stuff just from a pure design, angle. I think that they provide something really sort of unique and interesting. So and I'm go in that direction.
Yeah, I'm sure she can probably find them, at a pretty great price too. Because when they're these older models that aren't really as big and famous as some of the others, I know Catlin was looking at some of these older ladies Omega watches from the 60s, late 60s and 70s, and you can find them relatively cheap because
totally
no one really they're not in stock.
Don't spill the beans on the vintage ladies.
They're all going to be sold out.
Man.
Sorry.
It's such an easy market, vintage ladies pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, you may have to send them for servicing for 8 months, but it's fine. Totally fine. One day I'll have that watch again. Hopefully by the time this podcast airs, I'll have that watch back. That Omega, man.
So it sounds like there was a purchase.
Oh, I may have, been on vacation last summer, by the way, in 2019. May have had a few drinks and gotten on eBay and decided to purchase my first vintage watch, which was a 1949 Omega Lady Safette. So it's tiny, the size of my pinky nail tiny. It's ridiculous how small this watch is, but it's so beautiful. I fell in love with it. Runs like crap. I've had a local watchmaker look at it. But then I finally decided last November to send it off for servicing to Omega in Switzerland, which has been quite a time consuming process. And then obviously the world shut down for 3 months. So, but I saw it's supposed to be back. I got an update mid-July. We'll see.
It'll be back to running terribly too by the time it gets back to you.
By mid-July, I'll have had, I just saw on my, your Instagram memories, I had picked up or come home from vacation a year ago last week and had that watch. And I'm I've only worn it 4 times.
Hopefully it comes back and it's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Somebody says nice things.
Well, I just have a feeling it's going to come back. It's going to have a note on it being this thing is so small. We cannot work on this anymore.
It's so tiny. Oh,
was it running when you bought it?
It runs, and it ran okay for a while. It really did. And then it started losing maybe 5 minutes here and there. Which, for me, I don't, and I say this on the podcast, I don't wear my, the same watch back to back. So no matter what, when I pick up a watch, I'm going to have to wind it and reset the time. So if it loses 5 minutes in a day and it's a vintage piece, and I know the cost of servicing is going to be well more than what I paid for the watch as it is, then I don't worry about it. But then I remember, I think I was here one day, and like all of a sudden it was 4 hours slow, and I was like, what is going on? And so that was no bueno. At that point, I felt like I needed, and I love the watch so much that I'm willing to invest in it.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, when you said running 5 minutes slow, I was like, so what was like the impetus to get it serviced? But
hours.
4 hours.
Yeah.
Well, 4 hours is
that was 4 hours in like an 8 hour
with.
time period too. Man. Oh well.
One day soon.
One day I'll have this back. But best of luck finding your wife a vintage Cartier.
Come on, I was just rooting for you. You're supposed to be rooting for me.
I meant that very sincerely. Best of luck. No, I think, like we were saying, I think that the ladies' vintage market, it's really cool. And at the end of the day, I paid like basically nothing for this watch, and I adore it. I really love it. So I have no problem paying for a service for it, and knowing that I'll have it for, however many more years after that.
Yeah.
And a warranty and all that fun stuff. So it's fine.
All right. Well, Parker, as we begin to close out the show, we do this thing which is kind of like a fire round at the end of our episodes with our guests. And
I don't know why we call it a fire round because it's not.
It's fire.
We just ask 10 questions.
Well, we ask 10 questions, and you answer as quickly as you possibly can. That's why it's a fire round.
I think you're supposed to have a time limit though for a fire round.
We don't count. You can take as long as you want.
Lord knows we do.
But they're just some fun random questions we have, and it gets our audience to know you a little bit better too.
Yeah, non-watch related questions. So
cool.
All right, we're ready. So, favorite emoji.
Favorite emoji. Palm tree from LA originally, and something about that just makes me think of LA.
Oh, I like it.
Man, so I feel like I know the answer to the next question. Then, do you prefer the beach or the mountains?
Actually, that's a tough one. Love skiing, but something about like a cocktail on a beach is just about the greatest thing on earth. So
yeah.
I got to go beach.
100% agree.
All right. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I think teleportation. Like
that's a good one.
I love traveling. I love seeing different parts of the world, but like flying isn't the greatest thing on earth, and like time changes and all that stuff. But like being able to like be anywhere at any time sounds really cool. And I'd also be able to skip the New York City subway in the summer, and that sounds pretty great.
Oh, I can only imagine. Okay, so what did you want to be when you grew up?
I don't really remember. Let me think about this for a second. My original sort of love was music.
Okay.
And I wanted to be a music producer.
Very cool.
And and I did some things in music and ultimately found it sort of wasn't for me. And I love it as a hobby, and I love listening to music and going to shows, but didn't want to do it as a profession.
Fair enough.
Yeah. It's hard when you try to like mix. And here we are talking to you. You're in the watch hobby and you're starting this, watch related thing. But it's hard sometimes mixing that passion with your job. So I have a brother who's insanely into bikes and mechanics, and he worked at a bike shop for a while, and it got to be too much of a job for him. So he took a step back where he could really enjoy the hobby. But sometimes even though you love something, you may not want to work in it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I found.
Yeah.
Again, as I'm saying that, as I'm going into
I know. I'm like, well,
like,
maybe
I work in watches. I have a watch podcast.
I know. We can't talk. I don't know what I was
hypocrites.
saying.
It's fine. But for everybody else, maybe you don't want to work in what you love.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard
I think it depends on the industry and who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a way to do it right. And I think hopefully I'll find that too in watches.
Yeah. All right. So the Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
I'm Beatles all the way.
Cool.
Pizza or burgers?
Burgers.
Ooh.
Burgers.
Yes.
The good thing about both of them is that like there's no such thing as a bad burger or a bad slice of pizza. Like even a really like
you've not had pizza
slice
in Tennessee, man.
You're right. I might be spoiled being in New York.
Yeah. I feel like you're very spoiled.
See, and I feel like I've had so many like mediocre burgers, but then the pizza, like I'll just eat it. Like even if it's terrible, I'll eat it. Like if you put pizza in front of me, like it's gonna be 8. I can't say the same for burgers.
That's fair.
All right, so if you could be reincarnated as any animal, what would it be?
I think a giraffe.
Okay.
I don't know why. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to that. I just think that they're cool.
You just want to be tall. Super tall.
Yeah, like I'm like 6'2", 6'3". I'm tall, but I don't know. They just seem to have a pretty good life. Like,
yeah,
it's very relaxed. You know, the food they're eating on the top of trees, no one else is going after.
You don't have to fight anybody for food.
It's a pretty good, chill existence.
Yeah. There's not a lot that will hunt a full-grown giraffe either. So.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Very cool. What is your secret talent?
My secret talent. I'm pretty good at Excel. You know, it's like it's one of those things I don't like really want to like boast about, but like just about I can sit down and knock out a model or do something on Excel or know all like the secret hidden formulas, and it helped me out a lot in life.
Yeah, you know what? I'm jealous of that because I have a big problem with Excel. Like I get stressed out. Oh, that's...
Well, trust me, when you're also good at it, I end up making documents on Excel for just about everything in my life. And that stresses me out just as much as not knowing how to use it.
All right. So what is your favorite snack?
My favorite snack? I'm a chips person. Just like salted kettle chips.
Carbs, yeah.
Yeah. Give me something salty and crunchy. All about that.
I'm down for that. All right, and last question. Where is the first place you want to travel, like, once you are able to travel again safely?
Ooh, that's a good question. Somewhere in Italy. Somewhere on the coast in Italy.
Nice.
I think like everyone, like, love Italian food, love good wine, beautiful beaches. That seems to have it all for me. So, like, renting a convertible and driving up and down the Italian coast, that's really high on my list.
Yeah. Man,
that sounds awesome.
I can't wait to travel again.
I know.
Yeah.
I miss traveling.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon. Well, I think that basically kind of wraps everything up. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about with Dial and Bezel in particular?
No. Give us a follow on Instagram at dial.bezel. Check us out online. It's www.dialandbezel.com. And shoot us an email if you have feedback for us. It's hello@dialandbezel.com. We'd love to hear from you, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. We hope to make it better. So let us know.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Sounds good. And then for our listeners, definitely make sure you follow Dial and Bezel. You can check out show notes. We'll have links to everything on our website, www.10and2.com. Follow us along on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 10and2 Media, and YouTube, because by the time this comes out, we'll be YouTube sensations. Not really, but we'll have a video or two up. So follow us over on YouTube as well. And Parker, thank you so much for taking your time with us. We're so glad that you reached out to us and that we had a chat a few weeks ago and that we're able to do this because it's so exciting. We're very excited for you. This sounds absolutely awesome.
Thank you both. This was so much fun.
Awesome. All right. I think that's it.
That's it. Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.